I haven't been following Microsoft Office since obviously I left a Microsoft dependency some time ago. But from what I see, it's all just bells and whistles. It's got no substance. I mean, I remember using, I believe it was WordPerfect, going back probably about 15 years now, where you just actually had to put in control codes if you wanted underline or bold or whatever. And it wasn't until you went to page preview you actually saw saw all your changes in place. And really, if it produces what I type and is a WYSIWYG word processor, that's all I need. And it just seems to me to be pointless and just fluff. I don't know if you've got any views, but I mean, what I would say is that I noticed that was the way that Windows was starting to go from XP. There was a lot of show, it looked like a good operating system.
They have to try and show. The issue they have is lots of people, they don't catch up. Well, first of all, Microsoft tends to take a third-party application. Past used to be WordPerfect, and they copy the application. They would have you believe that they created these applications and the features and all that. The situation is quite different, of course, because people just never used, especially the young generation hasn't used WordPerfect, so they assume Microsoft invented the whole thing, and they see something in OpenOffice which might have basically mimicked just about any word processor at the time. And they think, oh, well, they're just copying Microsoft because that's all you see around you. You see just Microsoft Office. And you see, oh, well, they're using a Windows, like a rectangle thing where you put things. Oh, that's a lot of Windows. Windows is in, Microsoft Windows. And some people think Microsoft invented the Windows interface because of the name Windows. And because that's what they're used to seeing. But in the case of word processors, Microsoft finds that everyone's got them and it's doing all the basic functions. Microsoft has to sell some sort of proposition make some sort of proposition of why you should use theirs and what is new in theirs and why does it have compelling reasons for you to spend depends. I suppose it's like $500 now, $400 now for just the latest version of the same thing you already have. So the thing they did is adding like the ribbon and doing lots of marketing around it. And the theory that some people have, especially competitions of Microsoft, they say Microsoft is just trying to put some patents on the GUI. So what they do is they try to change what people are used to, and before they do so, they make sure they are the first to kind of implement that, and they put lots of a sort of a patent thicket around it. So any person who wants to use the same interface, when they get used to that, will have to pay Microsoft first. So it's something to be avoided, I would say. And lots of people can avoid it now because they move to things like Google Apps and OpenOffice, and they don't really... I think they first showed this in 2007, in Office 2007, and it's just... I don't really know many people use that interface now.
I mean, if we take away enterprise for a second, who may have some custom macros, or scripts, whatever that's running within the Office environment, I always ask, what on earth are people spending money on Microsoft Office for? Especially when you look at an implementation within the home. My parents don't have any sort of different requirements in an Office suite than I do. It's pretty much standard, maybe writing the odd letter, maybe even typing up an essay for a night course or something along those lines. And I just cannot see what encourages people to go out and spend money on these packages. It's always been a mystery to me. I've always asked the question in some Microsoft forums, on Twitter, and the same answers that you get back are the sort of stock, vague responses like, well, the feature-rich environment does X, Y, and Z. It doesn't really say anything. And when you come down to it, it's the features, actual real features that they offer, are no different to what you can get from Abbey Word or OpenOffice or LibreOffice or anything like that.
For most people, I suppose. There is this saying, well, I once came across the nice statement which says 80% of the people use only 20% of the features, and vice versa. So I don't really know if a person has done measurements. It depends on the demography of people you measure, you apply this to, and things like ages and where they work and the nature of the document they work on. But if I were to use I don't actually use a word processor like ever. Maybe sometimes when I receive a letter, that's formatted in Microsoft format. I might just open it and just read it, but I never actually write in it. But in most cases, all you have to do is to have to put the content in. Everything else is supposed to be automated. So you're supposed to have things like templates and things like that. So you're not supposed to touch all of these features. You're just supposed to give some instructions like emphasize, not just emphasize things like sometimes you have to change the size of a font, but you're not supposed to do that if you actually have some semantics in the document. It's supposed to know what font the size is what size the font is supposed to be. I've used LaTeX before to do working documents. It's a bit it's not quite like HTML. It could be like HTML because if you code properly in HTML, you're not supposed to tell it what the page looks like. You're supposed to give it the content, and everything else is being handled by the style sheets. And it doesn't have to be a page. It's like a piece of paper, but it can be a piece of paper. It can be a printable thing. It can be something for a mobile device. And Microsoft is still trying to sell people this impression that they work on a piece of paper. And you see it straight away in the new versions of Office, where they have the boundary. That's kind of a light blue thing with a gradient, yeah. And they try to give you the illusion you work on a piece of paper, and that's just not so modern. I think if you try to encourage people to think of their document as just a piece of organization of information, maybe they work on a web page. You probably shouldn't be doing it in a word processor anyway, but some people do that. They still insist on working in a very simplified way, making people quite stupid about how to construct a letter that looks professional, because they're not supposed to mess around and move things and aligning things left and right. It's supposed to be automated if they do it correctly. And I see the same thing happening with presentations where people stop thinking. They just put a few words here and there and animations and pictures and transitions, and occasionally I have a person asking me questions how to do that. And I'm just like, I don't know. I never use these things. And that's just generally a question about how people are taught to use the computer. And I think the ribbon is an excellent example of how silly they're willing to make people be. So, at least we used to have things like menus. You'd still do very foolish things like putting slides and thinking in terms of like, all kinds of bullet points and very short statements of whatever, all kinds of junk. But now what they have is a very Fisher-Pricey like interface. So just click all kinds of, bears and things happen on the screen, and I just kind of look from behind a person who works on it, with a gradient blue thing in the background, and just kind of thinking it looks kind of like a person working on a toy. And
I mean, I think it's very patronising as well to users, because bearing in mind it wasn't a very long time ago where you were given a computer, it had 48k of RAM, you loaded your software off tape, and your GUI was no more user-friendly than a couple of words of text and maybe a flashing cursor. And people didn't fall apart, people weren't unproductive. Just because there wasn't a Microsoft logo or a fancy ribbon hanging around, it didn't stop people from getting the work done, because people actually did the work, and that's the important thing. And I mean, it's often said, and I won't mention the very famous slideshow presentation software, but it's very true that they say it's these slideshows and the fancy effects and the swishes and text popping onto the screen when you're giving a presentation is all very nice for the first couple of minutes, but it's probably the most overused facility within any corporation, and it means absolutely nothing, and the content has gone missing. And I think whilst Microsoft is releasing these later and later versions of MS Office, it's really just hide these fancy ribbons and everything like that. It's just hiding behind this is the same old text editor, word processor, or whatever.
People very occupied. I think what company was it? I think PayPal or eBay or something. One of the companies they have a situation where they have lots of engineers and they build the product. You cannot fire these people once they do that. You need to maintain a certain number of staff members. So what you do is that you create some projects you don't necessarily need. You try to keep them busy somehow. You don't only have managers, but you also have managers trying to instruct people to do certain things that the company doesn't know if they'll work or not work. Now, how does it relate to Microsoft? Well, in the Office team, I from what I once read, this is the biggest team in the whole Microsoft. It's also the most profitable product that they have. And they have only about, well, not only about, just over 1,000 employees, developers working on the